Successfully deploying applications on the SAP Business Technology Platform, in short BTP, is just the beginning. True value emerges when you can efficiently operate, maintain, and scale them. In this series, we will explore the critical aspects of day tool operations. And by the end, sorry, I had to switch off the sound here. So, and by the end of today's session, you will have a clear understanding of how you can use SAP Cloud ALM to monitor SAP BTP and how it can help you achieve a clean core. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining. Today we have the second episode of Mastering Your Data Operations on SAP BTP. And I have the pleasure of having here with me Stephanie Jack and Andrea Campo. Stephanie is part of the product management team of SAP Cloud ALM for operations. She is a solutions expert and runs customer-facing activities around operations for BTP. Stephanie aims to empower customers to benefit from using SAP Cloud ALM for SAP BTP. Andrea is also part of the product management team for SAP Cloud ALM in Focused Run, specializing in advanced analytics and intelligence dashboards. Since joining SAP Labs France in 2012, he contributed to key projects like Focus, Build, and Insights for Solution Manager and Rise with SAP Methodology Dashboards to SAP Cloud ALM. And with this, I would like to hand over to Stephanie. Over to you.
Thank you very much for having us here, and also welcome from my side. And let me directly proceed with the session contents and by sharing my screen. So we are now here in day 2 operations and looking into SAP Cloud ALM, what we are offering. So a quick reminder, there's an entire series. There's more to come, which you will also learn in the end of that session. And for the next formally 1 hour, we will take you through the topics. So the first part will be around SAP Cloud ALM in general, an overview touching OpenTelemetry at SAP, as well as what SAP Cloud ALM is offering to support operating SAP BTP. The second part is moving towards an outlook and is around clean core and RISE dashboards in the context of operations. And we'll close it up with further informations and also taking some time for your questions. As we are talking about an outlook, you might know that disclaimer. So yes, we have to mention this one. There will be contents shared in that session which are not yet released. So it will be partially also a preview, an outlook, but nevertheless, we wanted to share the details with you. So please keep that disclaimer in mind. And with this, directly heading over to an overview. So what is SAP Cloud ALM? So what we are supporting you with or customers with is the need of an end-to-end observability across cloud and on-premise systems, SAP and non-SAP systems. So how can I observe? How can I then also react to a certain problem? As well as bringing all parties in, such as customers, partners, as well as operations. We are looking into that topic observability and offering various perspectives. So via the use cases, this might be looking at business processes, integrations, user experience, exceptions, automations, as well as the health of your landscape and the services. And in addition, this is also, it's around detecting a problem, but then triggering a reaction to it. So this is where we will follow. How can you imagine this one? So in the end, the SAP Cloud ALM is supporting a lot of products. This is just a glimpse of it. And you can see it and you will see it a lot of more times as part of the Grow with SAP and Rise with SAP. So how are we doing this one? So from an inbound integration perspective, we are working with metrics, configuration items, log entries, traces, or events and alerts. These items are handled as part of the problem detection within our use cases. You can see here two flavors of use cases. On the one hand side, offerings which are product agnostic but open for non-SAP, or on the other hand side, where we offer product-specific content and also having or offering options to integrate your own content, to bring in own exceptions, to cover the entire landscape, which is relevant for looking at a certain process and having that global observability view. So starting from a business layer with the business process monitoring, here is where we do monitor business objects such as sales documents. So this is business KPIs, where you then can look into, and it's in between IT and business and following the flow. The next use case is the integration and exception monitoring. This is, as you can clearly see from the wording, there are two aspects in. On the one hand side, the integrations, so messages, scenarios where interaction between services and systems components is happening and is important in order to have your business running, that all these messages are going through, these interactions and interfaces are working, as well as showing exceptions which occurred in your services, in your applications. The next two use cases are around user monitoring. On the one hand side, it's the real user monitoring based on users clicking, interacting with the system, using the solutions and capturing what happened at what sequence and maybe where was the response time not the best, so or which errors did occur. And on the other hand side, a more proactive aspect with the synthetic user monitoring, where you can then make use of scripts based on Selenium and runners, where you can proactively execute certain steps of your processes using applications in a periodically manner, and with this gaining already insights in if there is something changing in the app behavior. So is the app reacting? Is the app not reacting anymore? Is it slowing down? So in the best case, to observe and detect a problem prior to users reaching out to you and reporting you there's something ongoing, something is not working. The next use case which we are offering, or the perspective where you can look at your landscape, at your services, is the job and automation monitoring, which is clearly around execution of the jobs, any patterns, any long runners, anything which is not or which is handled or executed in a special way, followed by the configuration and security analysis, formerly the latest member in the family of our use cases, but nevertheless also an important topic. So this is on seeing configurations in which were done in your system, for example, is then any parameters, as well as having you the option and also gaining insights into security aspects for the configuration of your systems. And there's a lot more to come. So this is really a topic where you will see a lot ongoing over the course of this year. And last but not least, which is always important and it's a central point, is the health of that application. So a lightweight system monitoring, you could also say, based on technical metrics, where you can gain insights on CPU, on memory consumption, you can put in your thresholds and much more metrics to be explored and offered based on the respective product you are looking at. Following this perspective, or this flow of the problem detection, is then the routing of that problem. And this is a central service which is used by all the use cases. So it's handled in a similar way. So a problem is detected, and with the intelligent event processing, the problem is then routed towards initiating the problem resolution. And in the area of the problem resolution, this goes hand in hand with outbound. This can be on the one hand side to create an alert, to send a notification. It can be a Teams chat message. You can also trigger an operations automation, so to directly start or get things addressed, as well as the external API management, where you then also can consume a technical metric, for example, the switch in a threshold of the technical metric, and create your own reactions, what happens. What was not yet mentioned here, these are two more flavors which are also spanning across, so they are not use case specific. This is on the one hand side, the business service management, so you can consider it an umbrella on this, where you can also then include or bring in informations around the availability of your services. So in the SAP for me, you do know there are notifications and informations in when there's, for example, a planned maintenance. This is what comes in. So the availability of your services via the business service management into the Cloud ALM, and comprised then also by analytics and intelligence functionality, which are spanning across all the use cases. And there's a lot in or behind the topic, which you can then use and figure out in order to come to your expected aim around observability. Just a few numbers on SAP Cloud ALM. So we have in the meantime at least 3,600 live customers, and this is always getting more and more using the Cloud ALM in the operations area to monitor the landscape. In 2024, so last year, for example, 24 million notifications and incidents were created. So incidents meaning tickets or also triggering a chat notification, and to also bring in something of the volume of the metrics which we handled, for example, on a monthly basis in health monitoring, 30 billion metrics were collected. So you can imagine this is a lot what is ongoing, what we are offering you and providing you to support you to run your landscape in the best way possible. In total, we are supporting more than 90 products in the operations area. There's also a link in the slides available where you can then find further information. This is for sure, these are products which are on the one hand side BTP specific. So in the following slides, you will mainly have that focus on BTP, but for sure we are also supporting an S4HANA cloud, a private cloud. So there's a lot more which you can find, and you can always find the latest information around the supported solutions in our expert portal, as well in the help, because we are releasing continuously further content for you. So in the context of that topic and supporting the BTP, this is where we also made use of the OpenTelemetry. So what is OpenTelemetry? OpenTelemetry is an open standard, which is around having a defined way of handling telemetry data. So there are four formats provided by that format by OpenTelemetry. This is metrics, events, logs, and traces. And with this, there's a broad support available. So this is something which is integrated in various areas. So it's nothing which we as SAP invented. So we are here following a way to make it really unified and in a good way for you to also provide your options to integrate your own data. There is that aspect of making it as easy as possible for you to be used, because in here on the one hand side we have some automatic instrumentation parts in, as well as there are also things, if we do think there's more which we would like to provide to you, that we put things on top. But it's always around that standard to keep it in a way which you can use the best. From an architecture perspective, on this slide is a lot, so I don't want to touch all the details, but nevertheless, I would like to mention what means customer-facing observability and what could come or what are the flavors of this one. On the one hand side, at the top left, you can see SAP built applications, so-called SaaS applications. These services do then have our data collection instrumentation embedded. This consists of standard OpenTelemetry extensions, as well as it can be also metrics or details which we added for you on top to monitor such a service as best as possible. This, based on that instrumentation, the data is sent to our data collection runtime and then made available in the SAP Cloud ALM. So what is also important to be mentioned here is that for that case, we are preparing as much for you as possible. So you can consider it as a pipe which is in place, but it's on you then to switch that pipe on and use the data. So the data is only collected if you switch it on and would like to use that functionality. The second area which you can see is the custom built application. So for example, if you have an app running on the BTP, you would like to monitor that app, then you can also use our data collection infrastructure libraries and can embed them into your applications. And based on these embedded libraries, then the data can be also made available in the SAP Cloud ALM. So as you can see, these boxes also look quite similar. Yes, so there is we use the libraries for both. On the one hand side, for the things where we prepare the monitoring, the applications for you to monitor, and on the other hand side, the libraries which you can embed into your use cases. And if this is not enough, we do know there is more than just SAP most likely used, but nevertheless, if you would like to also add this in this context, then there's also the option to bring in data from non-SAP providers. And in that area, you can find a bunch of APIs available on the one hand side inbound, so providing data to us, as well as on the outbound side. And this is the next area on this slide. So you can make use of the collected data then in dashboards, for example. You can build up an SAC, you can use in Grafana a plugin, or what is also in here, you can make use of the adapter. So there's a connector in where you can then also share the data within the Focus Run and monitor from a Focus Run if you are using Focus Run for sure. So there's a lot on that slide comprised. I don't want to share more technical details. If there are any questions, feel free to reach out to us afterwards. We are always open for questions. And at the bottom, you can also find a link with further information. As I briefly touched the APIs, I would like to mention that we have various types of APIs in the operations area. So on the one hand side, there are analytical APIs where you can then consume the collected monitoring data and bring it in an own dashboard, or create any further things and whatever you would like to do from an analytics perspective, as well as there are raw data APIs. There's also the option to read the landscape. And last but not least, we have transactional APIs as well as integration scenarios. And at the bottom, you can see that the analytical APIs are APIs which are usually used as based on OData and REST. And in the area where we are now, this is then open observability data and OpenTelemetry, which we use. And you can also find the analytics APIs in the Business Accelerator Hub. What APIs we do offer, and here I would like to make one example on how to read that slide, is the first column or the second column is our analytics API. You can see all use cases are supporting this type of API and providing the data which was collected previously. And the further contents are around OpenTelemetry based APIs. And taking that example from exception monitoring is that in the format of metrics, you can get exceptions as outbound. If you would like to also bring in exceptions, then you can use the log format where you can see there's an inbound API as well as an outbound API. And for traces, there's nothing which we provided. Why? Because we had a look at the use cases, we had a look at the data which we have in that use case, how is observability looking in these use cases, and made a suggestion or decided these are applicable APIs. This is what we will provide to you as a customer. That doesn't mean that we won't do it. It's just not making sense from our perspective. But there's an influence open, which you can also find in the slides. So if we missed anything, there's a specific aspect you would like us to think about, to consider, then feel free to create an influence request. Now coming to the support of the BTP. What is important in this context is these are two terms. On the one hand side, the problem detection, which is done by, or which is in the area of the central observability, where you can make use of SAP Cloud ALM as well as Focus Run. And on the other hand side, the local observability, which is in the area of the problem resolution. So this is where you then can work on the problem, react to the problem, and where you are in tools or supported by tools like SAP Cloud Logging or SAP Automation Pilot. In the end, what is across is the telemetry data, and the data is used, and the same data is used in both areas. So the data is provided by Datasphere, Build Process Automation, BTP, ABAP, Neo, Analytics Cloud, and so on. And I'm quite sure you can also read the other services which are, for example, in. So it's the same telemetry data which is used. What we provide on top is that context-sensitive navigation. So from central observability, from the problem which was detected in the Cloud ALM, navigating, for example, into the cloud logging service. And this is also what I would like to show you in a moment. So from a demo perspective, I could for sure show you all the use cases, but I would like to pick out 3 of them to show you how these use cases or how that monitoring is looking from that perspective. And what you can find then, if you would like to know more about the use cases itself, you will find for each of the use cases, which I mentioned in the beginning, an explanation. So here you can see integration and exception monitoring. This is around an end-to-end monitoring by correlating messages. In the picture, you can see that it is starting with S/4HANA Public Cloud, something which is then also transferred to SuccessFactors via the CPI. And there is also the option, and in that picture, there can also be an SAP S/4HANA, as well as furthermore components. So this is just one of the examples and scenarios where you can then use it and have an reliability, or can make sure that the data exchange is then running. In addition to this, there's also search functionality available. So if you get an exception, quite technically, you can also use it up. And for each use case, there is at least one more slide touching the services which we are supporting for a respective use case. And these slides are tailored to BTP. So here you can see integration monitoring is supporting the integration suite cloud integration, the event broker for cloud applications, SAP mobile services, the master data integration, as well as the master data governance cloud edition and data intelligence. And in the area of the exception monitoring, we support analytics cloud, SAP integration suite cloud integration, as well as in the bottom where the area is of the custom built applications, where we support applications which are running in the Neo, which are running in Cloud Foundry Kyma, as well as in the ABAP environment. And for all the other use cases, there are similar slides available. I would like now directly to take you in the system and show you an example of a custom built BTP application. And as you've seen, I prepared it up front, so let me reopen it. So what we have here in the demo is the travel agency. So the travel agency is built based on the S-Flight example, which you might know from 20, 30 years ago. There was an ABAP-based version, and there's now also a cloud version available. So you can clone that Git repository and in your environment, and then you directly have a travel agency with 2 applications in, and also some sample data, and you can familiarize yourself with how, with an app deployment, developing an app, using an app, as well as the monitoring parts. What we did on top to what is described in that Git repository is we embedded these 2 applications in a work zone service. And in order to monitor, I also need to use these applications. So I'll quickly do some clicks in. So this is what you can see. It's a Fiori UI where you can do a lot of analytics in here. You can also filter on the data, see which flights are booking in. You can also then check what Green Albatross offered and what are the prices for such a concrete record, and why am I clicking so much and telling you so much about that application. We would like to see what I clicked on the other hand side in the Cloud ALM. So there's also booking details available. And this is what you get out of the box of that application. There's a Node.js as well as a Java-based instrumentation available. We did make use here of the Java-based instrumentation. And if I'm now switching back to that other application, there's also an option available where you can create travels and manage travels. And as I mentioned, the exception monitoring in here, I'll quickly make use of that travel, planned travel, which is accepted, and an accepted travel I cannot reject anymore. So now I also created an exception in that case. So let's come to the Cloud ALM. And this is the Launchpad. So you can see in the operations area all the use cases which we are offering, as well as some management automation options. And let's start with the health monitoring. So in the health monitoring, we would like to, and you always have a home, you have what you are looking at, the components, and you have a time frame. And what is shown here, this depends on what you selected in your area, and below at the bottom you have favorites. So you will see the UIs are similar, nevertheless they are considering individual or different data artifacts. So if I'm now going to that environment, so the BTP Cloud Foundry environment, we can see that we have that travel agency in here. And in that travel agency, we now do get a list of metrics. So in that BTP sub account, there's not only one app running, we also do have a Node.js app running. This is why you can see also Node.js metrics at the bottom. But this is nothing which I would like to comment now in detail or show you. So such metrics, on the one hand side, you can also see more details. I'll take my favorite one, the old memory generation. So we can also here check the history. So how was that memory consumed, released, how did it behave? And you also have the option to look at it from a broader perspective. So are there any peaks in it? Did something not working out? For example, I guess here it's more than usual. Maybe we could have a look what happened in here. As well as you can do further filtering. So you can remove that filtering on a single service which is running in that account. You could also add further spaces. So there's a lot more which is possible. And this is where we are in the area of the problem detection. So you can maintain here then thresholds. So what is a critical value? And based on these thresholds, you can then create an alerting. So this is the problem detection. But as this might not be enough, I also mentioned from a global observability perspective that there's also a context-sensitive navigation possible. What you can see in here is then the cloud logging service. This is not part of the cloud ALM, so it's an additional service, but if you embedded that service in your application, you can then also monitor your app in addition and have these context-sensitive jump-in links. And there's a lot available on memory where you are most likely much more informed on and can read out much more than I can do. But nevertheless, in the end, this is a very powerful tool which you can use then on top, and it's seamlessly integrated from here. Let me also quickly show you here an alert, and you will see that these alerts are looking similar in all the use cases, besides, as mentioned, what is contained in here. So this metric is then containing the metrics as well as the values. And integration monitor or exception monitoring, we will then see further details on the exception. So this is on a high level, the health monitoring. And as this is not the only use case, so now we've seen the health of our application, let's have a look into the exception parts. And in this area, I would like to show you two flavors, which you can see already. So on the one hand side, we'll have a look at the exception, which I recently created by trying to reject an accepted travel. And on the other hand side, we'll also have a glimpse into non-SAP. So we are also having here a Tomcat server, which is sending us exception to be monitored as a sample of how you can bring in further exceptions into that environment to have that global observability aspect in one place and one tool for the problem detection. And here you can see the list of exceptions. You can see at the top also an evolution. So is there any special day, any special time, anything which was maybe more than expected? For example, if you did a deployment of the app or a change in the app, this can always happen. And at the bottom, you can see then the individual exceptions with a correlation context where you have a lot of details from a technical level. There's also the context available. And for the ones who also implemented from time to time Java applications, also can see here that lovely call stack with a lot of information of the context where that exception happened. And also here, what we are offering is the option to jump context sensitive to the cloud logging service. So here you can see that specific exception. It's just one exception, okay? And here is where the entire context so it comes in. So if I remove now that trace ID, I can see a lot more what is ongoing and do further analysis and then also see that context or that exception in a certain context and react to it. So there's a lot to be explored by you. So this is it from our travel agency. And what we also do have in here is, as an example for making use of our inbound OpenTelemetry APIs, this is a Tomcat server. This Tomcat server is so nice to send us exceptions. So yes, these exceptions are not very creative, but you can see that it's an option to bring in your own data, and it's on you to specify what is shared. So here, this is some container information which you have on top. Then there's also an association context available. So this is on you, then in the end, what you share and when you are creating exceptions, which you can also quickly see here. So on the one hand side, we have exceptions which were raised by an application running on a Tomcat server. And on the other hand side, we also have this warning in here. And this is something which we selected, which we selected based on the logs which are available on the Tomcat server. So it's on you then to instrument what is available. And here you can also see this is nothing which is automatically running. So we have some usage at certain days and periods and exceptions which are happening. And also here we have the alerting on top, and there's a little more ongoing. So here, for example, if I open that alert, you can then see at the bottom what is here comprised in. So we have in total 3 exceptions. One is of type error. This is the one which I clicked recently, and 2 warnings. And in the alerts, you then have the option to also either confirm it, add comments, send an email. And what you can also do and make part, it's not only the alert inbox in here, you can also directly decide to have an email sent to a certain person. So it's on you then to judge where the problem resolution should start at, so whom to inform on about and how to react to. So what I did not yet show to you, and this is the last part of the demo, is the real user monitoring. As mentioned, this is about users clicking using your system. And as I also prepared here something, let's take how the app was used today. So what we can see in here is also the Tomcat server. So starting this time with the non-SAP part, so you can also monitor in here how that app was used. And in that case, I guess it was mainly me clicking in here and creating one of the exceptions in here. And here it's on you what you provide, what is also as authentication being used. As it is a non-SAP, so something which we are not managing, it's on you to hand over the data in an OpenTelemetry based format so that we can incorporate it in here in our environment. And what I would like to show you now is our travel agency. So in the real user monitoring, you can see now these are all the requests. You can see how many executions we had today. You can see the average response time as well as the number of users. And this can make a difference if you're analyzing such a situation. So you've seen me first of all clicking in the analytics app, and at the top there was the summary button. So this is what is behind that selected action. So I do know it. It's not a meaningful name. I fully agree on. Developers can do better. In my case, it's perfectly fine for me because I know that this is my button, which I clicked. And if I, for example, take that execution from this morning, you can see that my click started in a UI5, which is a work zone service. You can see that it came across then that S-Flight service and that we had multiple requests. So on the one hand side, HTTPS requests, which weren't finished, so something good to be monitored, as well as some database requests, where you can also then get the entire statement from here if you would like to analyze why such a request is taking so much time. So in this case, it was a good one, so maybe not worth to analyze that statement, but this is how you can make use of it. And here we are in the area of looking at it from a horizontal perspective. Also here, we embedded the option for you to jump to the cloud logging service, and then you can see details on that request, on that click on a vertical base. So we have on the one hand side the spans, as well as the entire payload above or below, where you can then also read further things out of it and react to it. So with this, these are the use cases I wanted to show to you in this context. And let me quickly show one last slide recapping that based on the exception monitoring. So the central observability is in Cloud ALM. And from there, you can then jump to the local observability in the cloud logging, context sensitive. And this is how the interaction is between the problem detection as well as the resolution in the local parts. And with this, I guess I directly would like to hand it over to Andrea. So there are a lot of more slides so you can learn more about each use case afterwards. And with this, handing it over to you.
Andrea, you might want to
Yes,
unmute.
Okay. So my name is Andrea. I will spend a few words talking about Clean Core and Rise with SAP methodology dashboards. So let's start from the beginning. What is Clean Core, actually? So Clean Core is a set of guiding principles, okay, and that in the end have one common goal. So to support business transformation by designing systems which are agile, efficient, and innovative. Okay, and it does this principle. They realize, as you can see here in this slide, on several dimensions. Okay, so they focus on building resilient business processes and extensions, and with a certain data quality, ensuring seamless integration, and the last but not least, efficient operations. So here in this slide, what we want to do, we are mapping the different SAP Cloud ALM capabilities to these dimensions. The blue ones are the operations one. Okay, so from the operation perspective. So let's start actually from the beginning, from the processes. Okay, so processes, it's quite straightforward. We need to ensure that processes are running well. We have a dedicated application for that, business process monitoring, but we also need job and automation monitoring because most processes, they rely on automated task. So we need to monitor these efficiently. For extensibility, the idea behind Clean Core is that you should try to avoid doing modifications and extensions directly in your S4 system, where you work with APIs and you build your cloud compliant extensions in BTP. But this advice has a consequence, of course. So we need to make sure that these extensions in the end are monitored. Okay, so if you are building extensions out of the core, then it means that you are there is a responsibility to monitor these applications in the proper way, because they become business critical. Users are using these extensions, so you need the right monitoring tool to monitor these extensions. And OpenTelemetry here plays a crucial role. Okay, and as Stephanie said earlier, BTP applications can be instrumented so that the right signals can be sent to the different SAP Cloud ALM application, like health monitoring, real user monitoring, and so on. For the data dimension, we are investing more and more in what we called business object monitoring. So we know that a lot of data is exchanged between cloud solutions, between systems. If we consider master data, we need to ensure that this data exchange process is running well. Of course, there is integration and exception monitoring to track the messages, the different categories, but we are also going in the direction to bring a kind of business object view in these exchange processes. So, for example, with the new business object page in integration and exception monitoring, you can monitor the status of the master data replication. So this is quite important. For the integration dimension, I mean, this is a dimension for which we provide dedicated application. So integration and exception monitoring. We support several categories here, and we can really track what is happening, in the data exchange between the system to make sure that this is happening in a reliable way. Last, operations. Of course, it's a no-brainer that we play our role here from the operation perspective. So we can cover the full stack of monitoring, from the technical monitoring, to monitor technical systems, applications, and also business operations. So we have a lot of developments also going on to improve the APIs that can be used for example, to integrate SAP Cloud ALM with external ticketing systems, and so on and so on. So in the end, we can say that we can cover already most of these dimensions with the standard applications already available in SAP Cloud ALM. But actually, we are doing something more. Okay, so we are building a set of dashboards and tools dedicated only to RISE customers. So you could already see, for example, in your Launchpad, SAP Cloud ALM Launchpad, a dedicated new tab, Rise with SAP, where you can already see a tile named System View. This was released at the end of January, actually, so it should be already available for you. And with this application, you can, let's say, check the clean core status of your system. Okay, so and you can monitor what is happening also from the extensibility point of view, and it's already available. Here, just a small disclaimer: what you are going to see, the other tiles, the other dashboard, these are tools that we are planning to release in the future. But I mean, this is the current state of planning, and of course, it can be different in the future. But the main message here is that this set of tools. We are working on a set of tools. Some of them will be dedicated to specific personas, as to some specific roles, like the executive and the landscape view, and other tools will be focused on a specific dimensions, like the operation. So let's go back one step and let's focus for now on the operation dimension. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to develop an application, a dashboard dedicated exclusively to this dimension. Okay, and we are doing this with one main goal, and is to show you the so-called operation index. So it's a kind of a global rating that includes many categories and areas that gives the user an idea about the level of clean core compliance, of course, from the operations perspective. So how do we calculate this index? Actually, this index, to calculate this index, we will use several category scores. So we will cover several topics, several areas which are related to operations. And each category score here, like system status, the level of setup of your operations, your governance, tool chain adoption. Each of these scores will be calculated based on different KPI objectives. So we are going to define these objectives, like, I don't know, reduce the number of exceptions, stabilize the background processing, improve the performances, and so on. We will define these objectives for you. Each objective will be related to a specific category score, and it will contribute to the overall score, of course. And each KPI, in turn, will be evaluated based on the calculation of the compliancy of specific metrics, which are specific for those KPI objectives. For example, for the KPI objective, reduce the number of exceptions. Of course, we are going to collect the metrics and data related to the number of exceptions. We are going to count the number of exceptions, and then we are using a compliancy function to calculate the compliancy values, and in the end, these KPI objectives. So it's important to understand that this compliance calculation will be the same for all the RISE customers. So it will be calculated in the same way, and everything will be pre-configured, okay? Following the principle that we on SAP, we will define what should be done to improve the clean core compliance of your system landscape or your overall operations compliance. And we will start with the first release with a specific category score, which is system status. So it's quite system related. And in this system status, you will be able to see different KPIs objectives, which are related somehow to the performances, the stability of the background processing and exceptions. And we will provide an overview, which will be valid for all the landscape or all your productive systems, as for productive systems. And you will also be able to measure the progress in time of the overall system status score and the individual KPIs. And if you want, you will have also the possibility to see the same information and to evaluate the same KPIs and score at system level, so that you can immediately identify the systems which are presenting some issues from a specific point of view. Of course, by clicking on the system, then what you can do, you can access a different view, system detailed details related to the system, where you will be able to check the status of the individual metrics which are contributing to the calculation of the KPIs. Okay, so you will be able to see in the last, for example, in the last 30 days, what are the actual values of these metrics, so that this tool will be in the end, let's say, it will be a good support, a very good help for finding, anomalies or situations, problematic situations, depending on the different categories that we are going to propose in the future. So with this, I think I'm done. I'm not sure, Tanya, if we have time for a roadmap.
Yes, we do. We have a couple of questions, but I think we can manage if you go quickly.
Okay, so maybe Stephanie, you want to add something about the roadmap here?
Yes. Yes, sure. And let me also switch on my camera again. So what you can see on this slide is, on the one hand side, on the left hand side, which services we are already supporting and by which use case. And on the right hand side, in the planned area, you can see the services which we are currently working on to also provide you content to monitor these services. And what was recently being released is in health monitoring, the SAP data sphere. So you direct. And as you can see, there's much more to come.
I think we have a problem with the connection.
Is it also from your side? I wasn't sure whether it was just my side, but if you say so as well, so please excuse. I think Stefan has a problem. Maybe you can take over now, Andrea.
Yeah. I mean, here you will have time to take a picture of this QR code. So we have this SAP Continuous Influence program for SAP Cloud ALM. So if you want to submit a request or just rank some features that you would like to propose, and I mean, you have all these tools available that you can use to submit your feedback. Okay, and we will take this into account, and we will consider these in the backlog for future releases. Okay. So, and now I'm going to introduce you a special guest. So Boris Zarske, he will describe the upcoming events. So I'm handing over to you.
Thanks a lot. And yeah, for those of you who would be wondering where I come in, I just had the pleasure to organize the whole series together with Tanya. And yeah, before we come to questions, I just wanted to take the opportunity to give you a rough outlook of the upcoming sessions. So in May, we will continue with infrastructure as code, where we will take a look at how you can use Terraform as one de facto industry standard for infrastructure as code to provision also SAP BTP accounts, sub-accounts, handle entitlements, and so on. We have first an overview session and then followed by a session looking especially on brownfield scenarios where you already have an SAP BTP infrastructure in place and just want to nevertheless apply Terraform then for handling changes on your sub-accounts. At the end of March, we will then continue with local observability. So Stephanie already outlined that as part of her session. So here we will take a look at SAP Cloud Logging Service, which can work very closely also with SAP Cloud ALM, where you can then come from the horizontal trace to a vertical trace, pretty straightforward. Before then, in April, we will have our technical ops automation month, so to say, right? I mean, we will start again with an overview session from SAP Cloud ALM. They are focusing on, especially this topic, how you can automate flows there triggered from SAP Cloud ALM. Before we then take a look at the SAP Automation Pilot Service, which is a service from SAP Business Technology Platform again. It's a low-code, no-code engine that brings catalogs of single commands which you can combine into overall actions, and then you will really experience how an alert from SAP Cloud ALM or an event coming up in Cloud ALM can trigger then an automation flow executed on the Business Technology Platform. We will start with an overview session, then we will look especially at automation use cases around handling SAP HANA Cloud, before we then come to a more generic session with inspirational other use cases around operating SAP BTP. In May, we will then have a short break before we then start again in June with the very important topic of high availability and disaster recovery, meaning if you want to run business critical applications on SAP Business Technology Platform, that you understand what is available there that you can do today to increase availability and also make sure that you avoid data loss in case of disasters, and what is on the roadmap coming up around those offerings. Before then, at the end of June, mid of June and end of June, we will look at security topics, starting with identity and access management, which is of course a crucial topic, how you can handle that throughout your landscapes and different applications, before we then look into SAP security recommendations, especially around SAP BTP. So you have a lot of things coming up, and I want to take the opportunity to again thank Stephanie and Andrea for the great session today, but now over to you for the Q&A part.
Great. Thank you so much. Also, big thanks from my side to both experts for today. Perhaps, Andrea, you want to unshare so we can come to the Q&A. Perfect. Happy to have you back again, Stephanie.
Thank you. And sorry, it's already for questions right in time.
Exactly. Perfect. So let me come to the first question. Is it possible to get sample slide reference application, how this monitoring, clicks, service calls, etc., is implemented to record data from UEFI application?
Yes. So in the end, there's a slide which we've not yet shared with further information and links. And there is, on the one hand side, the CAP S-Flight app mentioned, so where you can get that repository from our public Git repository. And there's also the BTP developer guide mentioned. So there's an example of how you instrument your application. This is based on Node.js, following not the S-Flight app, but it's exactly the steps for a Node.js application, which is having a UI5 frontend and a backend. And if you would like to learn something about Java-based implementation, there's also a mission available in the Discovery Center. So you will get it as part of the slides. So there's a lot available also with the code snippets.
Right. Thank you so much. Then sometimes there is a heartbeat error, but where can we check further and analyze what caused the heartbeat issue?
I presume that error is shown in the health monitoring area, so I can only guess. So it's in general, it's usually if the service is not coming back with the regularly planned heartbeat. Okay, now you used the term too many times. So heartbeat is meaning giving us an indicator the app, the service is available, is sending us observability data. So if we don't get a heartbeat back, we say something is ongoing with the service, and this is in general an indicator that something is ongoing, as it is very specific, and we have the heartbeats, I guess, in nearly all use cases. Feel free to drop me an email with the context, and then I would like to take it up with the colleagues or with the experts and get you in contact, because it's very generic. There's not just one answer for a heartbeat not being available.
Great, thank you so much. Then the next question is, would there be a possibility to change the technical names? I don't know whether it's relationship or relay user monitoring for Fiori apps to Fiori labels that are actually displayed for the app on the Launchpad.
Okay, so what I do know is the so-called action column as part of my demo. There was this very nice KPI and technical and things and so on. So after each button, you can implement a more meaningful name or some sense-making name to have it applicable in the monitoring application, in the real user monitoring itself. But I'm not 100% sure if this was exactly your question too. So either add some details in the chat, or also here, reach out to us afterwards. We'll then take it up and clarify it for you. Or for general requests, maybe also mentioning our inbox, cloudalm@sap.com. So if there are any other questions, you can also make use of that inbox.
That is a possibility. And the other possibility is also just in the comments area underneath this video. If you have any question or whatever, just post them there and we will look at them regularly and make sure that your question is answered. And the next one is actually from Nacho. Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for the presentation. That goes to you, Stephanie and Andrea. So apart from that, that was the last question. Again, no. Wait, I have a question regarding RISE with SAP methodology dashboard. Do we need to do any configuration to see RISE systems in the dashboard?
Not configurations. Let's say you have to create your role collection and then assign a specific role to see the system view. So this is also described in the health portal, and it's the only thing that you have to do to see the information. Once you have the role collection, you will be able to see the RISE with SAP tab and the system view tile. Regarding the data for the specific systems, we are taking the data. So we are retrieving the list of systems from our backend systems. So the list is not coming, at least for now, directly from SAP Cloud ALM. But yes, we are getting the data partly from Early Watch Alert, partly from other data sources. But no other configuration besides the role setup is necessary.
Thank you so much. So I'm just answering in the chat that the link to the presentation will be available in the description of this video. So there's that. There are no further questions. Since we already still have 4 minutes, I would like to take the opportunity to ask something which we from the Global User Groups organization often hear, and that is, where can I find further information on RISE or Clean Core?
I mean, we will provide in the slides. You will find a dedicated page with all the links related to RISE with SAP, Clean Core, and possibly, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, also the health portal and the information related to the system view. You will see that we will provide additional links in in a dedicated slide.
And I guess you can also find on our homepage further information in general on RISE and how to get it. We can add that link, I guess, also in the chat then.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. With this, then, once again, a big thank you to you, Stephanie and Andrea, and a big thank you to you, Boris, for providing all the links in the chat and answering the questions. That was very valuable. And last but not least, of course, a big thank you to all attendees for joining. I hope I will see you again next week. And with this, have a great afternoon, a great evening, depending on where you are. Bye-bye.
Thank you and bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.